Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srimad Maharaj ki jai. So reading from Srila Prabhupada Leela. So they're looking at the Fisher Mansion in Detroit. So we are beggars, Prabhupada began. He was serious, and yet he spoke with an air of humor. Ambarish and Dipendra hid their faces in embarrassment. We have no money, Prabhupada continued boldly. Therefore, we are asking you, please give us this building. The owner glanced incredulously at his real estate agent and laughed nervously. Thank you. It's out of the question, he said. I can't do that. The agent was also taken aback and upset. He can't do that, she whispered. I can't give it to you, explained the owner, because I have taken a loss in maintaining this property, so I have to make my money back. This property represents a major part of my income. Then Srila Prabhupada said, how much do you want? Well, the man replied, I have to get at least $350,000. None of the devotees dared say anything. Prabhupada thought for a moment and then said, we will give you $330,000. 300,000 in cash. I'll have to think about it, the man replied. The real estate agent got to her feet, saying that a transaction like this is not usually done straight to the owner. But Prabhupada ignored her and spoke with the owner about how lovely the mansion was. Prabhupada then got up and took a short walk in the garden with his men. Govardhan asked Prabhupada if he'd liked it, and Prabhupada said, yes, who would not like such a building? Ambarish doesn't like it, said Govardhan. Oh? Ambarish said he thought the mansion was Maya. Yes, Prabhupada, but Maya is also Krishna. We can use anything in Krishna's service. Leaving the garden path and returning to their cars, Prabhupada asked Ambarish, so is this possible? Yes, Prabhupada, this is possible. As soon as they returned to the temple, Ambarish and Lekha Shravanti conferred. Her inheritance was limited, but she was able to give 125,000. Ambarish had to come up with the balance. The next day, the owner came to see Srila Prabhupada. The man was accompanied by two women, and they all appeared a little intoxicated. He had come to say that he accepted the offer. Prabhupada smiled and reaffirmed his intentions to buy. Afterward, Srila Prabhupada openly showed his blissfulness about the purchase. Just see, he said, I didn't have 1 penny, and yet I offered him £300,000 and $300,000 in cash. And now Krishna has provided the money. As Prabhupada had told the estate owner, I am a sannyasi, I have no money. And after collecting 300,000 from his disciples, he still had no money. Within a few days, he left for Toronto, taking nothing for himself. Everything was Krishna's, to be used in Krishna's service. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 8, entitled The Character of Bharat Maharaj, Text 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the verses in prose. I'll read through and we'll go to through the word for word. Aho Batayam Harina Kunaka Kripana Ishvara Rata Kachana Paribamana Rayanya Swagana Shridit Bandupya Paribachita Saranya Chamapa Sadito Mamliva Mata Pitaro Patrik Gyatin Yotikam Sikshavapayam Payaya Nanyam Kanchana Veda Mayati Vishabdas Chatat Eva Mayamat Parayanasya Oshana Palana Pritnana Lalanam Anusuyan Nanushstayam Shanyo Peksha Dosha Vidusha Ahobata. Please repeat. Alas, I am this. Harina Kunaka, the deer calf. Kripana, helpless. Ishvararata Chanana Paribrahmana Rayana. By the force of the rotation of the time agent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is compared to the wheel of his chariot. Svagana, own kinsman. Surit and friends. Bandupya, relatives. Parivajita, deprived of. Sharanam, as shelter. Cha, and. Ma, me. Upasadita, having obtained. Mam, me. Eva, alone. Mata, Pitaro, father and mother. Bratri, Gyatin, brothers and kinsmen. Yotikan, belonging to the herd. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Upayaya, having gotten. Na, not. Anyam, anyone else. Kanchana, some person. Veda, it knows. Mayi, in me. Ati, very great. Vishrabda, having faith. Cha, and. Ata, eva. Sorry. Therefore. Maya, by me. Matparayanasya, of one who is so dependent upon me. Poshana palana prinana lananam, raising, maintaining, petting and protecting. Anasuyana, who am without grudge. Anustayam, to be executed. Shanya, the one who has taken shelter. Upeksha, of neglecting. Dosha vidusha, who knows the fault. Translation. The great king Maharaj Bharat began to think, alas, this helpless young deer, by the force of time, an agent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has now lost its relatives and friends and has taken shelter of me. It does not know anyone else, it does not know anyone but me, and as I have become its father, mother, brother, and relatives, this deer is thinking in this way, and it has full faith in me. It does not know anyone but me. Therefore, I should not be envious and think that for the deer, my own welfare will be destroyed. I should certainly raise, protect, gratify, and fondle it. When it has taken shelter with me, how can I neglect it? Even though the deer is disturbing my spiritual life, I shall realize that a helpless person who has taken shelter cannot be neglected. That would be a great fault. Purport. When a person is advanced in spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, he naturally becomes very sympathetic toward all living entities suffering in the material world. Naturally, such an advanced person thinks of suffering of the people in general. However, if one does not know of the material sufferings of fallen souls, he becomes sympathetic because of bodily comforts, as in the case of Bharat Maharaj. Such sympathy or compassion is the cause of one's downfall. If one is actually sympathetic to fallen, suffering humanity, he should try to elevate people from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness. As far as the deer was concerned, Bharat Maharaj became very sympathetic, but he forgot that it was impossible for him to elevate a deer to spiritual consciousness, because after all, a deer is but an animal. It was very dangerous for Bharat Maharaj to sacrifice all his regulative principles simply to take care of an animal. The principles enunciated in Bhagavad Gita should be followed. Yam hina vyatayantyate purusham purushar shaba. As far as the material body is concerned, we cannot do anything for anyone. However, by the grace of Krishna, we may raise a person to spiritual consciousness if we ourselves follow the rules and regulations. If we give up our own spiritual activities and simply become concerned with the bodily comforts of others, we will fall into a dangerous position. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we see here how King Maharaj Bharat, even after already sacrificing his kingdom, his family life, his wealth, followers, he's become attached again by mere deer. So this is showing us how cautious we have to be. He became engrossed in the consciousness of I, me, and mine, and putting himself in the position of the Supreme Lord, thinking that he could deliver an animal. So in the purport, Prabhupada says that when a person is advanced in spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, he naturally becomes very sympathetic to all living entities suffering in the material world. So Srila Prabhupada was such a person, very sympathetic to how people of the planet were becoming more and more engrossed in Maya's allurements, and with no hope of being liberated from that bondage. So because he was so because of a sign of his advancement was that he was concerned for the suffering of the people in general. So he knew of their material sufferings, but he didn't become sympathetic to their bodily comforts, as the all. His interest was then to give them Krishna, to give them Srimad Bhagavatam, and the way to become really happy. There are so many charitable organizations who take care of the bodily comforts, and on a materialistic level, this is very kind of noble to be selfless in that way. There's so many people are homeless, and like with this pandemic, so many volunteers are there to help assist those who are disabled in any way or don't have the capacity to see to their own needs. So this is very much welcome and encouraging to see how people do pull together to assist when there's in times of emergency. But there's also a spiritual emergency going on also, because people may help in so many ways to help with the body and the mind, but and this the gain they get is another body to do the same thing or to reap the rewards of such pious activities. But it doesn't stop the cycle of birth and death. When they take another birth, and or something may happen to them, which may take them to a more degraded to more degraded consciousness, and become impious or animalistic in their consciousness, and then only to achieve an animal body, which can't think anything more than, has no other consciousness than just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Like we have our alpacas, they're your best, you're their best friend if you come to them with something to eat. If they see you don't have anything, then not so much interested. So so Prabhupada, he was able to do something wonderful in that he could reform the hearts of so many thousands of people, and take them from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness. We've been hearing about some yogic siddhis and so on, but this is a Shakti or an energy. Prabhupada was empowered to do this. It makes like the perfections of the yogis seem like playthings, to be able to become lighter than the lightest and appear anywhere, make your own planet and so on. It seems like they're in a playground, whereas Prabhupada, his powers were of benefit to society, to all living beings, and so that they could become eternally happy. So there's no greater power than this, because he was a pure devotee and so connected with Krishna in his love for him and his desire to please him at any cost. So he went through so much discomfort, so much inconvenience to deliver so many souls then, and continues to do so now in the form of his books, and in the form of the devotees who walk and talk from these sacred literature. So in this way, only Krishna can make someone happy. So here we have Maharaj Bharat thinking that he can has the power to do so, but it seems that he's totally lost it, thinking that he can take an animal to that his spiritual practices are less important than taking care of an animal. So similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna came up with so many arguments, and which were based on his own sense gratification, and I would be happy if I do this, and I would be happy if this happens, and if we do this, how can we live? So, but Krishna, he was want to give him the bigger picture, and how by doing what he wants, then we're watering the root of the tree. Just as we eat the foodstuffs go into the stomach, and from the stomach it nourishes the whole body. So in the same way, by pleasing Krishna with our activities, then not only we become naturally happy, but um, the benefit of that extends to the whole world. Just like pleasing Srila Prabhupada, pleasing God, pleasing his pure devotee. Devotees distribute books, distribute prasadam, made the holy name popular. So um, we see how people are being purified in this way, and even individually and collectively also. Prabhupada would also always credit the any good coming from the world in the world to his books. So we see how the consciousness of the planet is getting lifted by the people becoming more sympathetic to animals, which is a step up. If someone already engaged in spiritual life becomes involved in animal welfare, as explained here, then it's considered a fall down. Whereas someone who's, for example, previously a meat eater, then to become sympathetic towards animals is their advancement. There's one story of how one devotee, he was being criticized for eating all the paneer and the sweets and so on, and he would just ravage. It would be just ravage. It seemed so uncouth. But then they heard of his background, and they thought then their perspective changed, because he was a really heavy meat eater. Every day he'd have a steak or something like that. So depending on one's perspective, one can see him as somebody devoted, but very low character, or one could see the wonder of prasadam and its effect on this devotee. So yeah, so Krishna's always want to give the bigger picture, and so also Prabhupada, he would put the devotee before rules and regulations. He would, like we hear about, like Shruti Kirti, how Prabhupada was very caring in the sense that if there's any problem, they sit them down and let's discuss it. How are we going to solve this? So he would take a low rule to achieve a higher one, to maintain a devotee's spiritual welfare at any cost, not at the cost of his own spiritual practices. He'll try and give Krishna, and that's like he said. There's nothing more I can give you. Just chant, please chant. He knew the potency. He's aware of the potency. So, and that's what he's trying to give us in the form of Bhagavatam, in the form of giving us the holy name, in the form of prasadam. It's just our perspective. According to our perspective, we may not see it as something so great, but it's the one thing it's like a diamond. But still, we not appreciating the value of that diamond. We can sometimes replace it by something material, take our time up with the phone, or take our time up with something less important. So that's why the association to devotees is so important, which was lacking here in, as we see with Maharaj Bharat. He didn't have the association devotees to signpost him in the other direction, just to go back to his forget the deer. You know, you don't have to bring it grass. There's grass everywhere. So he doesn't need to, Krishna's already providing. We don't need to get involved. And what can we do if who are we to get in the way of someone's karma? That can only be done if we give them some spiritual benefit. I used to think when we're on the street that, you know, sometimes I think that, you know, who am I just here? You know, why should they listen to me? And came across the Coast Guard, and in the middle of Glasgow, I was wondering, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, he says, oh, the river. The river. There's a river just down the road, so we worked there. And I said, well, what keeps you busy there? Because I didn't see much happening whenever I went there. And he said, there's someone that jumps off the bridge regularly. I don't know if he said every day, but committing suicide. So this helped me think, well, I could meet this, the street we're on was a direct road to that river. So I was thinking I might meet someone who's considering these. So the considering committing suicide, so enabled me to be more bold in approaching everybody, at least giving them a chance to take to Krishna consciousness. And in this way, because whenever we meet someone, we're diverting their path, diverting them from the path to hell at that time. And so now we're doing things on the internet which helping people cultivate their faith in Krishna, so that when they come across situations which may divert them, they have the ammunition to, and cultivating the intelligence given by Krishna to see it for what it is, and see how one can serve in this situation rather than serve the mundane. Yeah, so as soon as we try to be Krishna in any way, as the supreme controller, the supreme proprietor, even the best friend, as Maharaj Bharat was trying to be here, then there's immediate fall down in our consciousness. So our position is always to try and give Krishna in a form of Krishna Kata, in a form of prasadam, whatever we can do to uplift a devotee. And this means becoming their friend, getting to know them, and meeting them, know where they're at, so that we can know their next step and encourage accordingly. Encourage means to give courage, and that's what we need, because we've been so battered by the material energy, bombarded with so many things that have put us into so many situations that we'd rather forget. So we need that encouragement to take the next step, because we're to develop that faith, and that we can do what's necessary to go back to Godhead. That it is a possibility, that it's not that that we can be indifferent to that, because things can be so, we can have so many trials in our spiritual life, but when we've got devotee association, they can make that ocean of material in essence seemed like the water contained in a half-cast hoofprint, just by giving another's perspective. Just as saying about that devotee just ravaging the curd and so on. It's just a different perspective that can change our consciousness. So for this, we need the association devotees. It's considered a hallucination to think that one doesn't need the association of devotees. And it's also a hallucination to think that someone can progress without it. Shishikoni Tai Mai Prashashi Ki Jai. So whatever way we can, according to our position, to be encouragement by being the example, and as much as possible, and with our words and with our mind as well, because sometimes we can have an attitude which others can pick up. I know I used to be try and be assist devotees as much as possible, thinking I'm doing the right thing by giving some instruction and so on. And people could sense that the intention was correct, but the delivery wasn't so palatable. So it's something that we have to work on to make it has to be truthful, but also palatable truth that they can take according to where the person's at. So this is the expertise of the preacher, to know what the next step is and encourage them on the path. Yeah, so Mara, is there any questions or comments you can share?
It's so interesting, I think here that we can be neglected his spiritual practices to help us here. It's also, you can expand that to neglecting spiritual practices to help others spiritually.
Yeah.
That's also there, because a little bit further, Prabhupada says that one has, in order to raise somebody to spiritual consciousness, one has to follow rules and regulations themselves. So when the thing is a material attachment, but also to help somebody spiritually, one also has to be, spiritually strong. It says, by the grace of Krishna, when we raise another to spiritual consciousness, we have to be also kind of vigilant, that we also don't get distracted. No, it's not that preaching is a distraction, but it can become, if it's distraction from our spiritual practices, because sometimes you can get on that wave, and it happens a lot, in the history of ISKCON, and individually speaking, it does happen that you can become so absorbed in trying to help others, but you neglect your spiritual practices, and you compromise your ability to help others, and you can even become spiritually weak. Like a devotee can become spiritually weak by trying to give so much, and then eventually they don't have anything to give and kind of burn themselves out. So you kind of it does happen.
Yeah, it's very true. There's many examples. Yes, one devotee was working so hard and he just took a break, went home went to his parents or something, and didn't come back for 8 years or something. But when he did come back, it's like Jad Bharat was just we're determined not to give everything and keep popular practices, and were very much glorified for their service and bringing so many more people to Krishna consciousness. So it's very easy for by in like an even out like a cloud. So again, how association is so important that one keeps connected with association and one keeps in contact with inspiring association, association that of people of devotees that nourish our determination and faith. Because if we don't have that, then we'll turn to something mundane to give us the same, trying to an attempt to do so. In the name of preaching, as the Guru was saying. Yeah, so Krishna, yes, it's all about remembering that Krishna is the doer and we're just the instrument, so how we can be a better instrument in this Sankirtan movement and by being strict in our practices and conscious of the instructions or what Krishna is pointing out to us to better ourselves in this way, then more potently become. This is how, association with a pure devotee can change one for life, change a person for life. So how we can be like that touchstone or just be, and just our associations be such an encouragement for others. For this, we have to know how to tolerate and persevere and keep going no matter what the so-called obstacles are there. And again, our association devotees who inspire and who we can provide them to be able to get that help, then progress is sure for sure. Just one more thing, how King Bharaj, he became attached to a deer. We see in society at large, the dog has become the pet, and it's a typical example of how, but in this situation it's a deer, but we put a dog in there, it's been more kind of up to date, and how they're one of the lowest animals, but, and then at the same time they kill the cow, which is the animal that's worthy of worship. So this is how topsy-turvy society is. So we're so fortunate to hear from the pages of Bhagavatam that put things into perspective, that can sharpen our intelligence to see things as they are. So if there's no comments or questions, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your attention. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Trust Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Iskon Vrinda Ki Jai. Vital Gaur Premanandi.
Vrinda Mataji Ki Jai.